Okay, we're in section 26. We just completed the lecture. Again, I'm hoping you paid attention to what was presented to you, which is basically we complete the square on the a quadratic equation in standard form, where you get ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. And provided a is not equal to 0, what do we get by completing the square? We get a really spiffy formula, and that formula is written over here. Now, I realize for some students getting through that is difficult, and they may decide to themselves, it's just simply not worth that. I just want to know the formula, and then I want to use the formula. There's nothing wrong with that. That happens to a lot of people. It's overwhelming them. So what they do is they cut to the chase and say, well, what do I need to know? You need to know the quadratic formula. What's it apply to? An equation of this form, ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, provided the a is not equal to 0. Here the variable is x. It could be a different letter, by the way. But the solution to this problem over here would be the variable would equal this statement over here. That can be difficult. All right, I'll tell you why it's difficult. It's the arithmetic that's a killer. So what we're going to do now is go to the examples. As I go to the examples, I want to make sure that you understand what the lecture was about, which is using that formula. All right, and if you look at these questions over here, they want you to use the formula. All right. Now, granted, my goal over here is also to say, does it relate back to what we've done in the past? And maybe it does, and we'll talk about that. All right, so let me do another share with you. And give me a moment. Okay, so I read the questions. It does say use the quadratic formula. I have no objection to that. What I'm going to claim over here is that I kind of like zero product rule, but if I tried the zero product rule, so I'll put this down over here. This is zero product rule. Let me write this down for you. If I were going to use the zero product rule, I will erase this, by the way, because it didn't ask me to do that. What would I do? X and X. It's got the 0 ready, and 3 and 1. And my claim over here, no matter what I do, I'm just not going to get that result, which is a minus X in the middle, no matter what I do with those numbers. So it's really not working with finger numbers. So I'm going to erase that, indicating bad idea. Right. Complete a square. You can do it, but I do want to point out why it would be bad for some to do that. You get X squared minus X equals 3. The reason it's bad over here is that half of that guy's coefficient, well, that's where it gets bad. It becomes a fraction. You could do it. You will get the answer. But you know what I want to do? I want to do what's been asked of me, which is the quadratic formula. So let me erase this over here, and let me write down the quadratic formula for you. Quadratic formula says if I have an equation of this form over here, ax squared plus bx plus c equal to 0, I can write the answer down immediately. Minus b, and we'll go through this example in a second, plus or minus the root b squared minus 4ac over twice a. Yes, you need to know that formula. So let's write this down, see if we can do it. And by this, I mean, can we actually identify the a? Well, the a is easy, that's 1. The b is actually minus 1, and the c, and what's a c? The c is minus 3. So let's write our answer down. It should be very simple. What do you get? X equals, I can put a little fraction bar down. And what I like to do first, I like to do the bottom first. What's twice a? Well, if a is 1, twice a would be 2. Write that over here. Now what I do, I do easy things. So what's the opposite of b? Well, b is minus 1. The opposite of minus 1 is plus 1. Then I get plus or minus. And this is where most people's troubles come in. It's the radicand that causes trouble. But I want to go through it step by step. All right? So what do I got to do? First thing I do is b squared. Well, if you square minus 1, that's minus 1 times minus 1, that's plus 1. Minus, it's going to be a tough one, 4 times a times c, which is minus 3. Well, I have to do the arithmetic now. Now, someone's going to say, I can do it in my head. Do it in your head. There's no need to write it down. It's easy. But let's write this down now. What do you get? X equals 2, 1, plus or minus. Well, what number you get there? You get 1 minus a minus 12, which is 1 plus 12, which is 13. This is the answer. Let's look at the K. We're in complete agreement, which is good news. All right. I want to be in agreement with the K. Now, granted, if there's any point where you feel there's a mistake being made, Mike K, you bring it to my attention. Mistakes have been found, and I'm thankful when students find mistakes. I really am very thankful when they do that. I put their name down generally in the notes. And you'll see names and notes about students that have actually contributed to the notes by identifying mistakes. All right, let's do number 2. And again, if I were doing number 2, one thing I would do is, go back to the old way of doing things, which is the zero product rule of factoring. And I'll write this one down for you. This would be 5x squared. In standard form, this would be 2x, then minus 1. I'm sorry, yeah, minus 1 equals 0. And if I were to use factoring, this would be 5x and x and 1 and 1. And I got to be honest with you, there's nothing I can do using finger numbers to make that work. Nothing I can do with finger numbers. So I'm going to erase this business. It's just factoring just is a complete waste of time. All right, I want to point out, if you were to use completing the square, what you have to do is isolate the constant. The problem with this, I want to emphasize it to you, is that the coefficient here is not 1. So if you were to complete the square, what you have to do is divide both sides by 5. And right now, it just seems like overwhelming amount of work to do. So I'm going to erase that. Again, I'm not saying it wouldn't work. I'm just saying it seems like way too much work. So what I want to do is the quadratic formula. Let me remind you, what's quadratic formula? It applies to an equation of this form, ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. And then if I have it in this form up here, the answer can be written down immediately. Minus b plus or minus, yes, you need to know the formula, b squared minus 4ac over twice a. Let's do it. First step, write it in standard form. What do you get? 5x squared plus 2x minus 1 equals 0. Identify the a, identify the b, and identify the c. I've done that. Next up, write the answer down. I like to do the bottom first. What's the bottom say? Twice a. Well, if a is 5, twice a would be 10. Relatively simple. We try to pick problems where the arithmetic is going to work out for you and not be overwhelming to you. What's the next thing? Well, I'm looking at minus b. Well, if b is 2, the opposite of 2 would be minus 2. Plus or minus, yep, a root problem. The problem with the root problem, it might be difficult. Let's go through step by step. B squared. Well, if b is 2, b squared would be 4. Minus 4 times a times c. Well, I got some work to do. And someone says, well, I'm just going to leave that as an answer. That's the correct answer. I'm not saying it's not, but you have to do arithmetic that you can do. Let's go through it. Don't be discouraged. I want to emphasize for a lot of students, this is problematic. It's arithmetic. What do you get over there? Well, 4 minus, well, if I did 4 times 5 times minus 1, I get minus 20. So it's 4 minus a minus 20, which is 4 plus 20, which is 24. Whoops, sorry about that. Do people make mistakes in arithmetic? All the time. This is why we provide a key for you so you can look at it. I'm looking at my key and I don't have the right answer. Got to keep going. Well, I want to just remind you of square root of 24. And someone says, why you remind it? It contains a perfect square. What's a perfect square? It's 4. What's the square root of 4? 2. What's left over? A 6. Why is that? 4 times 6 is 24 over 10. What I'm going to do now is reduce it. How do you reduce it? Well, I guess you could factor out a 2 from the top. I'll put that down for you. That would be minus 1 plus or minus the root of 6. I factor out 2, divide by 10. Again, if you can do this without doing what I just did, that's fine too. 2 goes into 2 once, it goes into 10 5 times. What am I left off with? Minus 1 plus or minus root 6. I can't say it enough times. Look at the answer key to make sure you can agree with the answer. Minus 1 plus or minus root 6 over 5. All right, number 2. Let's go to number 3. Again, I'll remind you for students that have a tough time following, there's little videos on the side. You can click on those videos and watch a spot video if you prefer. All right. I gotta be honest with you. I'm still going to go back to the old ways of doing things. And the first thing I'd like to do is, can I factor it? And I'll put, whoops, sorry about that. So, factoring, what do I have? X squared plus 18x minus 82 equals 0. I guess I get x and x. I don't know, 82. It's a problem. 82 is a big number, right? So I guess you could do 82. You might say it's 1 times 82. You might say 2 times 41. I think you get the idea. What I claim is you're not going to get numbers that give you a product of 82 and are going to give you that internal sum of 18. It's just not going to happen. All right. So I'm going to say you can try it, but finger numbers are not going to work. So I'm going to say factoring didn't work. Now that's discouraging. And that didn't happen in the beginning of the semester. Factoring always worked, but factoring doesn't work here. But I'm going to try completing the square on it. I think it's going to be easy. I'll write this down for you. So x squared plus 18x, and I'm going to isolate the constant, that would be 82. How do you complete the square? Well, it's nice if this guy's coefficient is 1, and it is. And then what do you do? It's nice if this is even, and it is. Take half of 18, which is 9, right? You take half 18 is 9. Square the 9, you get 81. So I'll add 81 to both sides. I think that's relatively simple. What do you get? A perfect square. X plus 9 squared, and 81 plus 82 is 163. Square root rule, x plus 9 equals plus or minus the square root of 163. Well, I know what x is. Subtract 9 from both sides, plus or minus the root of 163. All right, that's the answers over here. However, I did not follow their instruction. What is their instruction? Using the quadratic formula. All right, I'm going to use it. It's in standard form, and I'll write this down. I do want to discourage you, though, against this over here. Quadratic form is not something you want to automatically go to. It's something you need to learn, but you should learn when it's appropriate. All right, I would much prefer to use completing square on this particular problem. I'm going to use quadratic form because that's what it has to do. A equals 1, B equals 18, and C equals minus 82. Well, it's going to be tough. So write down what I'm writing down. X equals, well, let's see, minus B. I'll do this in a second. Plus or minus B squared minus 4AC over twice A. Well, I got to do some arithmetic here, right? And push this up a little bit. I personally like doing the bottom first because it's so easy for me. What's twice A? Well, A is 1. So twice 1 is 2. Then what do? I like to go to the top. That's the opposite of B. What's the opposite of B is minus 18. I'll write that down for you. Plus or minus. And this is where all hell breaks loose. It's right over here. I got to do the radicand. One step at a time. Looks tough. 18 squared. So tough, I'll just write it down. Minus 4 times A times C, which is minus 82. This is where a lot of students really bog down. And I want to go through the arithmetic with you. All right, now someone's going to use a calculator. I don't mind using a calculator. What I'm saying is you really have to acquire a skill of being able to do arithmetic, including if you're slow at it. That's fine. You just want to be able to do it. Let me do 18 squared for you. That's 18 times 18. Now, the way I do it, the way you do it, it should be incidental. What we should agree upon is the outcome of it. I would do 10 times 18, which is 180 first. Then I would do 8 times 8, which is 64. I'm using the distributed property, by the way. Then 8 times 10 is 80. 4, that's not so bad. 8 and 8, 16. 16 plus 6 is 22. Carry the 2, 324. Well, that's not so bad. I'm going to do the other guy. The other guy is going to be, oh, geez, I got to write this down. It's so bad. It's tough. I know that. I think you're appreciating when you did complete square how easy it was. It's going to be plus. I'll tell you why. If I do the multiplications 4 times 1 times minus 82, I know it's a negative number. So really it's minus a minus, which is a plus. And what do I need to really do? I need to do 4 times 82 now. That's not so bad. That gives me 8. 4 times 8 is 32. 328. Now, what makes this particularly bad for some students? It's the arithmetic that makes it bad. Let me repeat, when I did completing a square, it was super quick, super easy. Let me keep going. Now I got to do, let me get my eraser out because I got the baby where I took on the side and I don't need to see that. Kind of annoys me that's written down actually. So what do I do? I have to add 324 and 328 together. Now, yeah, I can understand people's argument. I don't need to write that down, nor do I, but it's nice if you can write things down and understand what you get. 8 and 4 is 12. 2 plus 2 is 4, plus 1 is 5, 652. So say, oh, I'm exhausted. You put a box on it. No, I don't think so. I'm going to look at 652. Let me get my eraser out. And I'm wondering, does it contain a perfect square? I'm going to look for one. I'm going to think maybe 4. Let's see, once, right? Let's see, that'll be 6. That'll be 3. So I think I'm getting close now. I'll write down for you. Minus 18, plus or minus, and 652 is 4 times 163, which can be 2 root 163 over 2. What does that give you? Minus 9. I'm dividing through. Find out what I'm doing. 2 goes into this and 2 goes into that. Plus or minus. Going to little zoom back over here, and I want to point out, what was the easiest thing to do? Completing the square. It really was. However, there's nothing wrong with using quadratic formula. What's wrong with quadratic formula? It may take a lot of work in the arithmetic department. All right, have options. My first option is the zero product rule of factoring. My second option is completing the square. Third option, quadratic formula. It's the nuclear weapon of the quadratic equation. All right, so we did the first 3 examples. I'm going to go to example number 4 now. All right. I got to be honest with you, this doesn't look like it's going to factor. However, you could try it. Completing a square is not a good idea. I'll tell you the number 1 reason why. This is not a coefficient of 1. We say, oh, I'll divide both sides by 2. Then this becomes fraction, not even, not divisible, not nicely divided by 2. It's a nightmare. I'm going to go right in for the kill quadratic formula. So let's write this down. What do I write down? Get a little better. This 4th problem right now. A is 2. And by the way, I do recommend that you write down what the A is. I do recommend you write down what the B is. I do recommend you write down what the C is. All right, now I'm going to put my problem down, and X equals. I'm not going to write the formula because it's my 4th problem. I'm getting more familiar. What goes on bottom? Twice the A. What's twice the A? It's 4. All right, what goes on top? The opposite of the B. What's the opposite of the B? Minus 5. Plus or minus a root problem. It gets tough. This is the tough part. B squared. What would that be? 25. Minus 4. What's A? 2. What's C? Minus 9. You still have to do the arithmetic. Let's go through that. Minus 5, 4, plus or minus. It's going to be tough though, isn't it? 25. What do I see over there? I actually see it's going to be an addition problem now. Why is that? Well, 4 times 2 is 8. 8 times minus 9 is going to be minus 72. So it's going to be minus of minus 72, which is plus 72. Now, what do you get over here? X equals. So 4 in the bottom, minus 5, plus or minus. All right, let's take a look. 25 and 72. That's pretty simple, isn't it? That's 97. All right, I'm done. Now, why is that? 97 contains no perfect squares. You can look for them. You're not going to find one. Let's look at the answer key, see how we did. Bingo, we got it. All right, that was number 5. Let's go to number 6. I'm sorry, that was number 4. I apologize. It even says 4 there. Let's go to number 5. Now, again, my understanding is I know what they said to do, but I'm thinking maybe I could do this by factoring. Let me put that down for you. And the factoring of this thing, it looks pretty simple. It's going to be x minus 3 times x minus 3 equals 0. Now we give you x squared. Yeah, it works beautifully. What's the answer over here? X equals 3 or x equals 3. I guess you could just simply say x equals 3. Pretty simple. What's this technique called? Factoring. Let's complete the square. X squared minus 6x equals minus 9. Well, it's in the proper form, isn't it? Half of this thing, that's simple. Half of that number is minus 3. Square it, what do you get? Plus 9. Add 9 to both sides. What do you get? A perfect square. And minus 9 plus 9 is 0. Square root rule, x minus 3 equals plus or minus the square root of 0. What do you get over there? X equals, I'm going to add 3 to both sides. What's the square root of 0? 0. So it's plus or minus 0, which turns out to be 3. No surprise there. No surprise. By the way, the answer key says no surprise. Here's my surprise. I didn't know what they said to do. What did they say to do? Using the quadratic formula. Let's do it. We're going to get the same answer. Let's write this down. Again, I encourage us. A is 1, B is minus 6, and C is 9. Let's write this down. X equals. Well, I like to do the bottom first, and the bottom is twice A, and 2 times 1 is 2. The top is the opposite of the B. Well, opposite of minus 6 would be 6, plus or minus. And what do you get there? B squared is 36, minus 4, times 1, times 9. Now let's keep going. The Radicand's a killer, though. 36 minus 4 times 1 is 4. 4 times 9 is 36. This is simple. Left off with 6 plus or minus square root of 0 over 2. X equals, well, square root of 0 is 0, so it's 6 plus or minus 0 over 2, which is 6 divided by 2, which is 3. No surprise there. We're getting the same answer. What's the easiest thing to do? I actually think factoring is. I really think factoring is really easy in that problem over there. What did they ask me to do? Quadratic formula. Do all techniques lead to the same answer? Of course they do. Let's go to number 6. Oh, this one looks just like the other problem we did. And you know what I want to do? I just want to see if I can. I don't think I could do this with using my finger numbers though. It's just doesn't say I can get a product of 82 with a sum of 18. And it looks familiar to the problem. I would say maybe completing a square. Let's see if we can do that. So x squared. Whoops. I'll go back to black ink. I'm going to try complete the square. Again, factoring looked too difficult, so I didn't do it. So x squared plus 18x equals minus 82. Oh, what do we do now? Well, the coefficient here is 1. This is even, which makes it really simple. Half of 18 is 9. And what are you going to do? You're going to add 81 to both sides. That looks pretty simple. What do you get? X plus 9 squared. There's a perfect square. And minus 81, I'm sorry, minus 82 plus 81 is minus 1. Square root rule, x plus 9, I'm using completing a square, equals plus or minus the square root of minus 1. What do I do now? Subtract 9 from both sides, plus or minus, and you should recognize square root of minus 1 is just I. So this is done. Does it match the key? Yes, it matched the key. Here's the deal though. I did not do what they asked me to do. What did they ask me to do? Using the quadratic formula. Let's go for that. Again, completing square was easy. I'm not saying it wasn't, but I want to learn what they were asking me to do, which quadratic formula. A is 1. I recommend you do this. B is 18. And C is 82. What do you write down? X is, we'll go through it in stages, twice A, which is 2. The opposite of B minus 18, plus or minus, is the radicand that kills students off. Let's take a look at this. B squared, that's 18 squared, minus 4 times A times C, which is 82. Now, I realize it's familiar, but I'm not going to say you can remember everything we've done, but I think we've done something like this before. Looks awful familiar, doesn't it? I want to figure out that radicand. So 18 squared. I think we did this before, didn't we? When I do some arithmetic, and I've said it might look strange to you, but you do arithmetic, I do arithmetic. We can't disagree on the outcome. I hope not anyway. 10 times 18 is 180. Let's see, 8 times 10 is 80, and 8 times 8 is 64. I'll erase that in a second, by the way. Let's see, 4, 8 and 8, 16, 22, carry the 2, 324. So I got that. 18 squared is 324. I'll write that down for you. Minus, and I got to do 4 times 82, right? Well, that's not bad. That's 320, 328. All right, I'm going to erase my baby arithmetic. Again, completing the square was really quick. I'm not even halfway done yet. I got to do more arithmetic, right? So what do you get over here? Let's see, minus 18 plus or minus, let's see, that's going to be the square root of minus 4 over 2. I'm still not done. Let's keep going. And what do you get there? Minus 18 plus or minus, the square root of minus 4 is 2i. Divide through by 2. What do I mean by that? 2 goes into both of these terms over here. What are you going to get? Minus 9 plus or minus I. Do we get the same answer? Of course we do. It would be crazy if we got a different answer. Well, let me see if there's a number 7 here. No. What does this mean? You get a chance to try on your own now. You want to try the supplemental problems. I think you can do it. All right. I really think you can do it. You got to try though. All right. If you need additional help, please come by during office hours, and I will be more than happy to help you learn the material.